Hi, and welcome back to my readings of Travels with My Lamps. This is Chapter 7, The Heritage Front, or the time I did a gig for the Canadian Nazi Party. One day in the mid-90s, got a call from Bob over at Band World, wondering if I wanted to do sound for a punk band. Now, by this time, I was pretty much lighting full-time, but this sounded like fun, pun intended, so I took the gig. I was to meet the band downtown Toronto at a Greek Orthodox church, and they'd help load in and set up. I meet the band, we proceed to load the gear down the stairs into the basement, and start setting up the stage. They want to put their backdrop up, so I hang my truss and go out the front of the house to wire up the soundboard. Well, I turn around, and there's a swastika flag hanging from my backdrop. I gotta confront the band. So I walk out and we have a little chat. At this point, they've all been incredibly gracious and very polite and nice people. They tell me the band's called RAHOWA, short for Racial Holy War, and that the show is a meeting for the Heritage Front. At this time in Toronto, the Heritage Front was a racist organization, somehow aligned with a notorious douchebag named Ernst Zundel. The band tells me that they don't advertise the location of their concerts until the day of, and then it's all word of mouth. What the fuck am I supposed to do with this information? You know, my first reaction is to load out, because I don't roll with the Nazis. But, you know, I'm supposed to be politically neutral on shows. We have a wonderful thing called free speech in this country. And I'm a 6'3" white guy. Now, I had just done a gig for a Catholic church, and I'm trying to rationalize the evils done by the church to the evils done by the Canadian Nazi Party. Now, at this point in the conversation, they ask about a fellow technician named Vaughn Zinn. Vaughn's longtime friend, great sound man, and suddenly I remember his very similar story about getting conned into mixing a band and then realizing what the show was. You know, the thing is, Vaughn's is mixed race from South Africa. He's kind of not black, not white, sort of beige. And as I absorbed this, I remembered asking the band something like, "Hey, fellas, you know Vaughn's isn't white." And they reply, "Well, we really liked him. A great sound man. We'd have him back. Funny guy. You know, we make exceptions." And fucking Canadian Nazi Party. Stay in your lane. So my curiosity won out, and I carried on with the setup. I put a broken mic stand under the soundboard, figuring if the shit was going to hit the fan, I was going to take a couple Nazis out on the way. Now, when the church finds out who their tenants really are, they shut the heat off, and we start the show around the freezing point. Now, the band plays their hate-filled music. There's some speeches, a bunch of idiots doing the Sieg Heil thing, and basically a bunch of punks draining beers and slam dancing. Now, at some point in the evening, the leader tries to sell me a t-shirt. And I explained to him that crew don't buy shirts. But if he gave me one, I promised I would wear it one day. He declined my counteroffer, and I didn't get the shirt. A real shame. Would have been a great memory, that shirt. Wolfgang Droge, he was a smaller man. Small stature, black hair, kind of a weasel little mustache and beard. Couldn't help but thinking that he was the most un-Aryan looking dude to lead the Nazis. And several years later, he was found naked and very dead in the front hall of his house. Ernst Zundel was eventually bum-rushed out of Canada and back to Germany, where the Germans were none too happy to have him back, but payoff's a bitch. Asshole. Around midnight, I take a walk outside to have a cigarette, and as I walk around the block, I see the paddy wagon. The police got a command center there. Well, I bang on the door, and I introduce myself through the little slot, and they let me in. I tell them I'm the sound man, and on the show that they're monitoring. I ask them what the big deal is, because it seems they're just a bunch of punks dancing, drinking beers because their parents wouldn't approve. And they tell me that it's what happens after they leave the meeting. You know, alcohol, pack mentality, and they were known to go into the subway and make trouble. And the police asked me a ton of questions about the attendees, and I ratted those Nazi bastards out lock, stock, and barrel all the way. Before I went back inside, mixed the last set, and loaded the gear back into the truck. That ends my time that I worked for the Nazi Party. Fuck you. And I wish we could all get together soon and get back to punching Nazis. Peace out.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Vons. We got a special treat for you today. Um, Eric, as you know, has written a book. It's called Travels with My Lamps. And when he was writing this, he reached out to me to write a small part in it. Uh, and it's a shared sort of moment that we had in the industry together. And it concerns the Heritage Front, which is the Nazi Party here in Canada. Sonia, without further ado, I remember two things from my very short career working for the Heritage Front. After sitting through a multitude of hate filled speeches, I felt the urge to hit the can. While at the sink, I was offered a handful of brochures and other KKK propaganda. I smiled and took them, hoping to avoid any confrontation, but couldn't help but wonder if this guy was blind. My pigment is beige at most times of the year, but this was July, and I was sporting my full on field tan. I headed back to the board to hear more about how sickle cell anemia was nature's way of getting rid of the black population. When the show finally ended, the audience was police escorted out of the building for their own protection. I quickly started to tear down and get the gear back in the truck. I was running up and down the stairs to get out of there as fast as possible. At one point, I was running back up the stairs only to meet Ernst Zundel at the top. He was backing up quickly as this colored person came storming up the stairs towards him. I could see the look of fear on his face and chuckled as I went by. By the way, the Klan doesn't pay that well, so I quit. And so ended my tenure with the Klan. Anyway, that's all we got for you today. Stay safe out there, everybody, and white power.